Welcome back. Thank you to everyone that is returning. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome, and we're excited you're here with us today. Before we dive in, go to the link and tell us about yourself or a teacher friend that needs the microphone to share their awesome. This could be something big or something really small that makes a big difference. Maybe this is something like favorite lessons or filler activities, classroom hacks, homework or late work systems, working with special populations, classroom management, parent communication, organizational systems, bell work, technology, collaborations, working with administrators, buzzwords, and beyond. You can tell it's pretty much anything that has to do with the classroom. You could also suggest a topic that you want to know more about and let us find a teacher to share their experience with something that you're currently exploring. The microphone belongs to you and your friends. Just tell us what you want to hear and who we should pass it to.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. We are excited for our second episode with a teacher. And I'm going to be honest, I'm pretty extra excited about today's episode because we have my good friend Noah Brown here. So Noah, welcome to OK Let's Teach Math.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited. So Noah, I've known you for almost a decade now, which is crazy. But for everyone else, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so it's actually funny because I was talking with Dr. Bostic last week and he said the same exact phrase. And fun fact, it is actually a decade.
I know, I don't like that for me at all.
Yeah. So I'm Noah Brown. I teach 7th and 8th grade math in Toledo, Ohio. I originally am from Cincinnati, Ohio. I attended Bowling Green State University and kind of never left. I have my bachelor's, master's, and my specialist degree all from BGSU. I have been working in my current school district for 5 years, and I'm very excited because next year I get to begin teaching in a 6th through 8 middle school where all of our students from our district will come together. Outside of teaching, I guess still teaching. I teach at the university as well. I'm an adjunct instructor for pretty much any of the intro to math education classes, whether it's early childhood, middle childhood, or adolescence to young adult. I'm also involved in Ohio Councils of Teachers of Mathematics, where I'm currently planning the 2026 conference in Northwest Ohio, along with serving on the board as their nominations chair as well.
I feel like we need to take a road trip and take as many teachers up there as we can.
Oh, yeah. The Ohio teachers, they're doing cool stuff. And I try to know most of them.
And we have such a great venue this year. We're at Kalahari, so it's a huge conference event space. We have so much room for all of the OKC people that you want to bring our way.
What town did you say it's in?
It's in Sandusky.
Sandusky, Ohio.
It's 10 minutes from my parents' house, which is
fun. Nice. All right, party at Maria's parents' house.
I know. Noah's been trying to convince me to go.
Yeah.
And
Maria's dad will probably cook you dinner because a few years ago when it was Murray, it was actually a party at Maria's house. And
nice.
And my dad did cook everyone dinner. That's real.
Yep. I'm always up for a home-cooked meal that I didn't make.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks for sharing, Noah. What's cool for me is the course that Noah's teaching right now. Actually, I taught that course when he was a student, and that is how we have known each other for so long, which is fun. So I'm excited about all the cool things you're doing. But why we brought you on today and what you're going to share is recently Ohio added this 4th option math class. So for our Oklahoma people out there, in Ohio, students have to take 4 math credits to graduate. And so they added a 4th option math class for high school students called Mathematical Modeling and Reasoning. And so the course was designed how they describe it as for students who need a 3rd or 4th credit in math and are not intending to pursue a career that requires calculus. And so the Ohio Department of Education describes the course as a course designed to promote reasoning, problem solving, modeling through thematic units, focus on math practices while reinforcing and extending content in number and quantity, algebra, functions, prob and stats, and geometry. Yeah.
I'm going to throw in that this sounds like one of the 4th math course kind of options that maybe could be explored for Oklahoma as people are trying to figure out what that 4th math looks like.
Yeah, and I'll also add there as well that a lot of school districts in Ohio kind of implement it as an alternative to Algebra 2. So even if they're doing like a traditional pathway or an integrated pathway, it's either Algebra 2 or Integrated Math 3, in which students are maybe pursuing the military or the job force or anything like that. Then rather than taking Algebra 2 or Integrated 3, then they could take Modeling and Reasoning for their 3rd or 4th credit.
Yeah, yeah, and when I was looking into how the Ohio Department of Education and the Ohio Department of Higher Ed like came together to design this course, they originally created it because they noticed a high failure rate of students in college math. So we had graduates from Ohio who were getting to college and failing some of their early college math courses, and so they wanted to create a new course that was more engaging and rigorous, but also focusing on real world applications and topics of interest for high school students. So Noah, you don't teach high school, and I'm
No.
talking about this modeling course. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about how you heard about this course and how it actually inspired you to develop your own kind of version for middle school?
Yeah, so as you said, we've known each other for 10 years. And although I am licensed 712, you may remember that when I was your student, we went on a little walk and talk. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I like high school. I think I'm going to switch to middle childhood. And you were like, no, you can stay and just teach on the low end of your licensure. So seventh, eighth, maybe ninth one day. And that's exactly what I've done. Because my license is in 712, I have a lot of friends, both from undergrad and graduate school that are licensed high school as well. And so they've either taught this course and I've heard about it through them, but also in my affiliations with OCTM. So hearing about it at conferences or going to sessions where teachers are like, our district is piloting this modeling and reasoning course. Here's how it's going. Here's how you can bring it to your district. I was hearing nothing but success stories about this course and how not only were teachers really enjoying doing something different, but students were really enjoying getting it differently in a more unique way than what they had been used to up to that point. So I'm very thankful for my community of mathematics educators in Ohio because although I don't teach high school, I have a lot of great high school people that got to share this idea and I've kind of just been following it since the pilot to see like what are you doing? How's the MMR? What's happening there?
Well, and
Um,
I think too, just a point of clarification, you said you were hearing all of these stories from teachers who were teaching the course and seeing a lot of success. In kind of my digging about into this course and what it's been doing, I found a study from Miller and Walls, and they were studying the impact of this new course. And what they found is that students showed more perseverance and grit. Half of the teachers in their study reported that students were able to model and really were good at persevering when problem solving. And 70% said students could make connections to the real world. And like those are all things as math teachers, I think we're hoping for every day. So, you're hearing all of these narratives from your friends, but the research is supporting those findings as well.
yeah, and even like because I was kind of taken by this idea that the state of Ohio gave to teachers and teachers have ran with and turned into this really amazing thing. I created that semester long version for the middle school version, for the middle school opportunity for students. And my first semester students, I was able to do a pre and post survey, and I found all the same things. They were more resilient in what they were doing. They made connections across different representations better, and they just felt comfortable looking at the world around them and being curious about it with a mathematics lens.
How fun to get to start doing that in middle grades and really instilling those patterns and routines and mathematical norms for them to take into high school. So tell us, what does a typical lesson look like in your math modeling course?
Yeah, so they always typically follow kind of the same format. So I will just kind of talk about one, which is a paper airplane task that I've done. And then all of the other tasks that I do typically have the same steps. It just may look or sound different. So the very first task I did last semester, and I did the same thing this semester with this group of students, was I showed them a YouTube video from NASA or people who were partnering with NASA to try to create a paper airplane that flies 100 feet. From there, I kind of just gave them instructions to create a paper airplane and was shocked at the number of students that just didn't know how. They never had, or it just like wasn't something that they were like, I feel comfortable doing this. So yeah, he said make a paper plane. I can do that. Easy peasy done. Like our first draft of paper planes took a long time. So it truly was like some exploring and playing to see like what would count as a plane versus like when am I just throwing crumpled paper? So they get to make a first plane. We go out in the hallway, and I have a measuring tape that goes all the way down, and we have that same goal. Let's see if we can get a paper airplane to fly 100 feet. They learn from their first one, and then I say, okay, go back inside. And I tell them now they can use their Chromebooks to look at videos of like how to create a paper plane. But I'm telling them that they need to be very specific in what they want in their paper plane. Do you want a paper plane that flies far? Do you want one that has like a lot of speed? Do you want one that's going to float through the air? Like type those things into Google so you get the video that you want. Um, I kind of give them the remainder of that day to do that, and then the whole next class period, because as they're creating that paper plane, they get to just go out in the hallway and test it to see do they like how it flies. If not, they can find a new video and try again.
Is that all
What
just play, or are they actually keeping data at the same time, or a little bit of both?
So they do have to make observations and they have to justify why they're creating a new one. So like if there's something they didn't like about it, then they do have to write that down. So that way when I ask them like how many planes did you make? Why did you do that? I can see like kind of their creative
Nice.
process or
Nice.
each iteration. Um, Once they have one they're comfortable with, I introduce this task, which I've seen two versions of that are really similar. One comes from the University of Minnesota. And the other one is on this really awesome website where I get a lot of my tasks, Case Studies for Kids, which is from Purdue. But it's essentially this school that's running a paper airplane competition, and we need to judge it differently than how we have in the past in two categories: best floater and most accurate. So then we talk as a class. They answer questions with their group, and then we come together and we say, how do we define best floater? How do we measure it? What does it look like? How do we define most accurate? How are we going to measure it? What units? And then other considerations that we need to have. And it's really cool because both semesters students have gotten to share like, well, I shouldn't get to fly my own plane, but another student shouldn't get to fly my own plane. But Mr. Brown shouldn't get to fly my plane either because all of us could end up sabotaging one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So, like in the example resources for this task, it talks about the idea of like a neutral pilot. And it's really cool because they come up with that idea on their own. And then I say, okay, so who do you want our neutral pilots to be? And I get to invite them and then they come do the task with us.
Oh, fun.
Um,
That's fun.
so once we've defined all of the constraints for the contest and how we're going to judge it, we actually conduct the contest and we decide. So this past semester, they said we should do the sum of the three distances, and whichever one has the furthest total, that would be the most accurate. And they said we should do the sum of the three times, and whoever has the longest time. They were like, because we have three judges, so that just makes sense. There were some students that proposed averages, some students that said we should just keep the highest, but that's what we ended up landing on. So after they've come up with the rules and the constraints, we actually do the contest with our neutral pilots. We come back, we figure out who the winner is based on the rules that they decided. Um, and then the kind of like product from this task, aside from their paper airplane, is they actually have to write a letter to the judges explaining kind of their own experiences. So, where did you start all the way back when you were trying to get a paper airplane to fly 100 feet? How did that inform you to make better paper airplanes? And then how does all of that knowledge contribute to the rules you came up with for this competition? So it's really nice because some of the tasks that I do have a more like visual work product where they're creating a poster or a menu or something, whereas other tasks that I do have a writing component where essentially they're writing an argumentative essay, which is something they have to do in seventh grade anyways.
Mm.
Um,
Wait,
but
writing in math class?
yeah, yeah. So they're justifying and reasoning
Love
about
it.
what they're doing. And then the final day is always an S&P reflection. So I've taken the standards for mathematical practice and I have kind of made them more friendly to read for middle school students. And so they have to kind of bullet point. They read the standard or the behaviors that go with that standard and they say, okay, when throughout this 10-day task did I do that? And then they have to tell me there and they do that with their group.
It's so funny that you mentioned the SMPs. I was just going to ask you about them because when I was reading, it said that the high school version was originally designed to facilitate and engage students in the SMPs. And when you were talking, I kept thinking about way back 10 years ago, Noah did this really amazing presentation on SMP 4, which is model with mathematics. And I'm hearing you articulate all the ways your students are modeling in your class.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about?
Can I throw something in for a second while you formulate that question? Just in case any of you guys listening are trying to make sure you're connecting that correct, your SMPs are very similar to your MAPs, your mathematical actions and processes. They're not exactly the same, but they kind of cover the same kind of stuff, like how do you teach, what are those mathematical routines that you want to embed and develop in your students. So just in case you were wondering what SMPs were, how they connected to things that we do in Oklahoma, that is very similar to your MAPs.
And definitely go check out our last episode where we talked to Amanda about her use of the SMPs and the maps in her classroom as well. I guess what I'm wondering, Noah, is there's a lot of different definitions of models. I spent some time trying to be like, well, what is a model and how do we define modeling? And I came across this article, which I'll link in the show notes, that essentially says we have 5 different definitions of models that we use when we talk about modeling in mathematics. And so I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about, like, what does a model look like in your class and how do you engage your students in modeling?
Yeah, so I think it's complex for us as mathematics teachers and mathematics teachers educators to think about what modeling is, and then to not only think about it, but convey that idea of what a model is to our students as well. And so when I think about how do I convey modeling to middle school students, um, I think the best way that they can engage in it and see it is that idea of exploring and playing, because every time they do that, they're creating a model, testing it, and then revising. So in the paper plane instance, it is a physical model where they're creating a paper plane. But then later on, our model is their rules and constraints for how we determine the winner, because we used all of our knowledge to create this idea or create this set of criteria, or maybe in the case of most accurate, a formula where we're just doing the sum. And we're transitioning it to multiple different uses. And in this case, it's a bunch of students, different airplanes. So I think like modeling for them is really like, how can I represent what I'm trying to do? And then does it apply to new scenarios? And that's something that we try to focus on with some of the tasks that I do. So that way they get the opportunity to just reflect and revise.
Right. And also some of that generalizability too, right? Of, can I take this model that I created and apply it to different situations?
Right.
Yeah. I love hearing you talk about this course because I can just tell how excited you are about the work that you're doing and how passionate you are. But I'm thinking, like, as a teacher, and I'm sure all the teachers listening are like, okay, that sounds great, but I can't even imagine how much work it was to get that off the ground. So I'm kind of wondering, can you tell us a little bit about, like, why were you so passionate, first of all, about even creating this course? And what were you hoping your students were going to gain from being in your class?
Yeah, so I'm still an early career educator. This is my 5th year of teaching, but I had a really unique first 2 years, and they were a struggle. My first year of teaching was 2021, which was that first kind of like return to learn year after the pandemic. And there was that, and there were my own kind of imposter syndrome of, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? And then all of the other external factors that come with your first year of teaching. And so my first 2 years, and I didn't mention this earlier, I loop with my students. So my first 2 years, I had the same group of kids. And then my 3rd and 4th year, I had the same group of kids. I just taught them 7th grade one year and then 8th grade the next. So I had all of these really great ideas my first couple of years for what I wanted teaching to look like, how I wanted to engage students in mathematics. And it was really hard post-pandemic to get students to engage in mathematics in a way that was meaningful, and in a way that I felt they were actually getting something from it rather than me just spewing knowledge to them and hoping that they remember it. My 3rd and 4th year, when I got a new group of kids, I felt like okay, I know what works, I know what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Now is my opportunity to try and fine tune and find that like balance of sometimes we can do these nice tasks where students get to kind of develop their own reasoning and develop their own understanding of a certain concept or idea. There's certain topics in seventh and eighth grade that lend themselves really well to that. And sometimes we can just do procedural activities where we're just practicing, or I am just showing you something because I'm going to make the connection for you on how it relates to what we did. But I still expect and hope that you're going to understand why it works because we're doing it now. So after my third and fourth year, because it was the conclusion of last year when I decided to do this, I was like, okay, I found the balance. How do I do more?
Yeah.
Because I recognized that in my first couple years, it didn't work to just do one or the other all the time. So I was like, I want to give opportunities to students that genuinely want them or genuinely could benefit from them. So how do I implement that? And then it kind of just grew from there.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it reminds me of I had a professor when I was at Mizzou. Dr. Charles Munter. He always used to say, "It's not," and he wrote an article about it. Actually, I'll put it in the show notes. But he always used to say, "It's not about a balance. Like we can't think of balance between direct instruction and more of these task focused pieces of instruction as like it needs to be 50-50. The balance has to be about what makes sense for the content that I'm teaching, what makes
Yes.
sense for the students that I'm working with. And so some weeks the balance might be we're only going to do one task and we're going to do direct instruction the rest of the day, the rest of the week, or sometimes maybe it's the opposite. And it sounds to me like you kind of realized that, but you still wanted a space to do more of that hands-on task modeling with your
Yeah,
students.
yeah, absolutely. I find so much power in students getting to talk to one another about what they're thinking and why they're thinking it.
Mm,
And so I try to implement that in my math classes as much as I can. But I just wanted a heavier emphasis on mathematical discourse. How can I get
mm.
students talking to each other about math? And so that's kind of how this course was born, was taking that balance that you just said and saying, okay, how can I make it more of the focus?
Do you have any of the same students in your regular math class as you do in the modeling course? Because
Yeah,
your
so I
modeling
should
course would be a
mention,
subset, right?
yeah, I should mention that right now I'm in a single grade junior high because I mentioned we're opening a new middle school. So all of the students in my building right now are seventh grade students. We have a little over 500 of them. So there are five math teachers in my building. I'm just one of them. I have about 104 students that are in my normal math courses, seventh grade math. And then in my current modeling and reasoning section, I have, I think, 12. Um, Three of which are mine. I have them in my normal math class, but then I have, I think two students. I have one from advanced math and one from algebra one, but it's the same teacher. And then I have two from another math teacher, two or three from another one, and then this semester there's one math teacher who I don't have any of her students, but I did last semester.
And do you find that like and probably you can only speak about the students that are in your class, both of your classes. Do you see like a difference in their understanding and their reasoning in the modeling class versus your regular math class?
I think it's really interesting whenever we bring those groups of students together to analyze an idea or a problem because the obviously everybody teaches differently.
Right.
And so the way that students approach problem solving is different based on kind of what they expect to do in their class.
Mm,
So I really rely on the students that I have in my class to lead in the sense of letting other students know how we operate and what's okay and what's not okay. I rely on them for the classroom management aspect, which is easy when it's only 12 students.
yeah.
But in the future, if we extend this course and we have more students in it, then that could become more difficult. I think the big difference and really the big benefit is seeing what these different students might do to approach a problem because then it's not just a group of my students that I'm trying to engage in modeling and reasoning where we would only get one or two representations. There's a benefit of having that mix of different math teacher students because they're all going to approach it differently based on their own experiences.
Yeah, and I think, one of the cool parts about modeling, which I read an article from Bostic. I know you're surprised. I've also known him a long time. But he talks about how
Hey, Bostic's pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
But he talks about how modeling can really help students understand that there are these multiple entry points. There's these multiple strategies we can use to solve problems. And what I'm hearing you say is you're seeing that in your class, and that's actually what makes the class really fun and engaging is there's so many different ways students are approaching the problem or working through the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I would have fun if we were all doing the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. If everyone made the same paper airplane, there's not a lot of variability in the data.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm guessing that you have put in some work on this class and creating it, developing, conceptualizing it. I'm curious what some of your big wins and your big hurdles have been that you've had to overcome as you get this course off the ground.
So initially last spring, I was just nervous about getting support from, not support and they won't support me because it's a bad idea, just support and okay, it's spring and I just had this thought. So how do we make it happen? And is it even possible? And are other people going to see it as valuable as I do? So initially it was just that aspect. The fear of not having support from district administration or building administration was a concern, but it wasn't my biggest thing. My biggest concern was how do I articulate this so that everybody sees it the same way I do, which is we need this. It could really help our kids. So that was the first part. It was also probably the easiest part because since then it's been so much more difficult. Just because this is my 5th year and I've never had an additional prep before. I've never had this kind of aspect in middle school where I have one class that's doing something different. And so I don't have to just think about, okay, what are students' misconceptions or ideas going to be about this for what we're doing in my math class versus, okay, wait, what task are we doing in MMR right now? Because what do I need to focus on today? What questions do I need to ask? Who do I need to meet with? What groups do I need to talk to? And so that's kind of the biggest hurdle right now. And it's easier now because I did it one semester, but just trying to garner those resources and figure out how are we going to navigate this? What does this look like? What do I use to teach? What tasks do students do? Do any tasks require pre-teaching? Because maybe we haven't learned that concept yet in 7th grade in not just my classroom, but all the other math teachers as well. But it is something that's really cool. So maybe I have to pre-teach you a procedure first. There's so many moving pieces that in just 7th grade math, I've kind of put on autopilot at this point. And so it's just a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that there weren't any curriculums out there already and that you're doing a lot of that curriculum design. Is that a fairly true statement?
Yeah.
Do you have good resources that you could recommend? You mentioned one earlier that I'll try and link below.
Yeah, so I have 2 places that I started at in the beginning of the fall semester last year, and I can send you the links so that way you have them. But one of them was out of Carleton University, and the other one was out of Purdue, and it was just kind of a list of math tasks that are open-ended. Students can approach them in any way they see fit. I've learned from a colleague at BGSU. There's a organization called CoMap, and they run a middle school modeling contest every year. And so they kind of publish their materials afterwards for that. So I just did their Polygon Park task with my students where they had to create a schedule for students attending an amusement park.
And
that sounds fun.
They're so cool. I met some people from CoMap at the last conference I just went to in February, and I could have sat there all day listening to them. Their website's really helpful. I'll make sure that we link it in the show notes because they have new stuff coming out all the time.
I got to teach out of a CoMap book in Texas. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That was a long time ago, though. I don't even know if that book still exists.
Yeah, so it really is just a lot of piecemealing from like where do I know I can find good resources? So I look at Illustrative, I look at Amplify, I go to Open Up Resources, I go to the Purdue website and the Carleton website to kind of see like what do they have. Uh, and the nice thing about it is my focus for the course isn't any particular idea. My focus for the course is the standards for mathematical practice.
Mm.
So I can do anything that's grade level or maybe below grade level because that's the math that they can do. That's fine. My hope is that they just take those skills and that kind of routine of modeling and reasoning into their grade level math class when they're approaching things. Um, so that's the nice thing is like I don't have to look for one particular resource on one particular topic. I can kind of just look at something and say like, okay, what do I think? How do I think students would approach this? What SMPs would they be using? Is it reasonable? Okay, yeah, let's give it a shot. And then if it doesn't go well, then we spend less time on it. And for tasks that I try and they do go well, we extend those ones a little bit longer because students are more engaged in them.
Okay, this sounds like a class that I feel like every middle school, junior high student should have to take. Like it should be just be required. Be required.
I
Like,
think so too.
like I think it's just something. I think it would make our high school classes so. It would just transform high school. Like we would be able to do completely different tasks in completely different ways, and just start really embedding that at such a younger age. And then, of course, I would say in elementary school too. But
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier like that I did that pre and post survey with my first semester students, but this
Mm.
is another thing, Maria, that you'd ask, like, do I see a difference in the students that I have in math versus the ones that are coming to me from other math teachers? And where I get that benefit in my MMR class, I also see it as that added benefit from the students who are mine, maybe the following week or the next day,
Mm.
because they're a little more likely to persevere or look at something from a different perspective before they raise their hand and say, Mr. Brown, I need your help.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
if we just have students doing that, I feel I feel pretty good about it.
well, and I have to give some credit. I do think that there's a lot of schools in Oklahoma that are doing similar things like this. They're under some different titles. I don't know how prevalent it is, and it's something I think would be really fun to know more about. So, you Oklahoma people that are listening to us, let us know. Let us know that. Let us know if your school's doing something. I know of a couple. I just don't know how prevalent. I don't know how widespread it is. But yeah,
Yeah, and I think that brings me to my question I wanted to ask you now, like for the teachers out there listening who might want to start their own modeling course, do you have just like a suggestion you might offer to support them in doing that?
Yeah, and whether it's like a math modeling course or you want to create some sort of other elective that, like, based on your knowledge of students, you see it as something they need, it really comes down to finding support in a colleague first.
Mm.
Um, and obviously, you can find support if somebody's willing to support you. It can be anyone, but the reason I say a colleague first is because in my first few years, I was struggling, and I got really close with the art teacher whose room is right next door to me. Shout out Heather Hawkins. And she does a lot of exploration and kind of self-formulating in her art classroom because they have what's similar to the S&Ps, except it's called TAB, and it uses a lot of the same language. So immediately I supported what she was doing. I saw it as valuable. She supported what I was doing. She saw it as valuable. And I was like, okay, great.
did you say
After
art?
Yeah, he
art,
said art.
yeah,
Like art has things that are similar to the S&P/the maps.
yeah,
That
yeah.
is really awesome. I want to know more about this. I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, the
Sorry.
research is called, the abbreviation is TAB. I can get more information and let you know, but it's really cool stuff.
I'm really intrigued by this. That's fun. Okay.
But I remember like after my first year when it was a struggle, like the assistant superintendent at the time had kind of she was walking through our building and she had known Heather for a while. They'd worked together for a long time and she was talking to her and she was like, "Oh, I really like him. Like, how long has he been here?" And Heather said, "Oh, well, you might lose him. Not because of anything bad, but because I was young. So like
Yeah,
I could go anywhere."
that's right.
And so the support and belief that Heather had in me translated to a central office administrator. And then when we got a new principal, my principal immediately knew who I was because a central office administrator knew who I was.
Yeah.
So then it was really easy to get support from my building administrator. And then once all these people knew the things that I was doing and how I wanted to use it to create something for the benefit of kids, it was much easier to pitch that and get the support that we needed to get it off the ground. So you just need to find somebody who can kind of attest to what you're doing and see what you're doing as valuable so that way they can help champion your idea along the way. Whether anything comes of it or not, you've at least made that connection and you've at least let people know that, hey, you have this great idea and one day we could eventually use it.
Yeah, I think that's really good insight because what I'm hearing you say is the connections are what's important. And so I was looking into like how would you try to create a new course here in Oklahoma, and one of the things is you can apply for a locally approved math course. And so, but in order to do that, you're going to need support from your administration or from other teachers in your building too.
Yeah, I feel like we could try to describe all the process and steps and all of that, but I feel like what Noah said really drives home the connection and getting in touch with the right person that can then walk you through the steps that are outlined by the Board of Education and all of that stuff.
Yep.
Right.
And so we'll put a link to all that information if that's something that you're interested in.
And if you can't find that person close to you or you need somebody else, reach out to us and we'll try to connect you to somebody as well.
That's right. So
Yeah, especially because a lot of us have really great ideas. It's just we don't know who to begin talking to
Right.
get it off the ground.
That's right.
So having support and those connections, like you said, Kansas, like they can connect us to the right people. They can help us get this idea rather than letting it fizzle out.
I think to take it back even a step further, I think a lot of times we have these great ideas, but we don't realize that they're great ideas. And by having a conversation and connecting with somebody, it really validates that, hey, this is something that we really should follow through with.
yeah,
Yeah. That this podcast exists.
that's exactly right.
Hey, we want to start connecting people. Like,
That's right.
That's our thing. Okay. So at the end of every episode, we like to ask our guest a question. We actually give them 3, and they get to pick the one that they want to answer. And Noah picked the question, what is your favorite teacher moment?
So this sounds really bad because it has nothing to do with like my K-12 job.
That's okay.
But it is, and I love them. I love that job. I love my students. So like every day that I get to be with them is amazing. But I've recently started teaching the Intro to Early Childhood Math at Bowling Green State University, and a lot of those students come in at the beginning of the semester so nervous because the course is titled Introductory to Elementary Math, and so they're like, I'm so scared I'm going to have to do math, or I don't enjoy it, or anything like that. And that's not the focus of my course, is to get them to love math. It's just to get them to feel comfortable and to a point where they can understand it and make sense of it. And so at the end of every semester, anytime I teach that course, reading their reflections and their self-assessment summary that I have them do, and then later on reading their comments like in course evaluations about not about me, but about their own growth and what they see in themselves now as a future elementary math teacher, is so rewarding. And it's such a unique experience because that's not really my world. I'm
Yeah.
licensed 712. I've never done anything in elementary. So it's really fun. I think it makes me a better 7th and 8th grade teacher to do those elementary math things, but also it's such a rewarding experience to help those that are later going to be teaching young children that could eventually get to me. So it's really this huge, like if you zoom out, it's like, wow, there's a lot of impact happening here. But genuinely, it's just the transformation that I get to see them have is my favorite.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
fun.
that is fun. I'm with you, Noah. I think all secondary math teachers should have to take the elementary methods courses because
It changes your
it
perspective.
changes everything.
You get to see where
Yeah.
they're coming from, and you understand a lot more about what they're bringing to the table when they get to you.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's made me better in conversations like in my middle school
Yeah.
world as well, because we just went through a resource adoption and I'm looking vertically. I want to know because I have experience with the K5 or K6 standards, and I know the 712 standards
Yeah.
because that's what I'm licensed. So I'm looking vertically. How does this resource address those things? And conversations with other teachers, like being able to flex and go in between all of these different grade bands is really fun, honestly.
Yep.
I just noticed you're wearing a Jeep shirt. Sorry, totally off topic, but I have to just acknowledge that. But all right. So thank you, Noah, for your time with us today. And thank you to everybody that was listening and spending time with us today. We would love for you to be part of the conversation. Check out the goodies Noah and Maria left in the show notes and leave thoughts, comments, and additional insights in the section below. Also, remember to use the link in the description to suggest a teacher that needs the microphone because they are doing something awesome that needs to be shared with others. See you back in 2 weeks for our next episode.